There sure aren't many negatives to a job like this. Dream job. So many ways. A lot of work, but a dream set of circumstances. Except for one small thing. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. Comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. That negative is the email. If you're a media company, or if you're even peripherally attached to a media company, if you've ever even heard of a media company, you will get email. You will get unwanted email from not just the financial overlords in Nigeria. You'll get them from the one population base that's now even larger than that in the spam world, and that's the gambling community. Because there's nothing that happens in sports that can't be bet on anymore. And the people who send the emails, they even have like betting type names to them. I got one yesterday from Jimmy Shapiro. Now, if you just met Jimmy Shapiro like on the street, you'd know because his name is Jimmy Shapiro that he's offering you betting tips. Well, Jimmy Shapiro sent me the first bank yesterday of, in parentheses, very much unwanted, and parentheses, predictions for the upcoming NHL season. And these predictions specifically align which teams are going to finish where in their respective division standings. And what's more, if you dig into the betting lines that are attached to each team, you can also decipher rather easily which ones will be the best and the worst overall teams in the entire NHL. So cutting to the chase, because I wouldn't want to rob you of what Jimmy Shapiro has to say about a season that's still several months away from starting. But the Penguins are picked to finish way last in the Metropolitan Division. And for some added perspective on that, the bottom four teams in the Metro are expected to be the Islanders at 20-1 odds, the Blue Jackets and Flyers both at 25-1 odds, and the Penguins at a mind-blowing 75-1 odds. Now listen, I don't even know what those mean, but that sounds bad because you went from a 20 to a 25 to a 75. I also know that's bad because the worst team in the Atlantic are the Bruins. They're at 45-1. And the only two teams anywhere that are worse than the Penguins, and they're 75-1, are the Blackhawks and the Sharks, both at 250-1. Like, Chicago and San Jose won't even have players who are capable of skating forward and backward. At times, just to amuse themselves, they'll turn around and fire pucks on their own goaltenders. That's how you get to be a 250-1. Look, if it's not coming across, I'm not taking this seriously. I don't know that anybody else should, except, of course, for everybody inside the immediate Jimmy Shapiro clan. But I do feel compelled to point out that so much about how the Penguins are being perceived toward the coming season is based on, sit down for this, perception. They're being perceived based on perception. I'm going to try to take that perception and counter it with this crazy thing called facts. Since the end of the 2024-25 NHL season, the Penguins have lost exactly one player off their NHL roster, and that was Alex Nedeljkovic, traded 8 days ago to those 250-1 Sharks for a third-round pick. Every other loss, so to speak, every other departure would probably be a better term for it, was of somebody who was in the minor league system and almost in every case not significant. And I'm talking Vasily Ponomarev, Connor Timmins. I mean, I can't even think of anybody else. Really down the list, guys. So what that means is that other than Ned, the entire team, the entire makeup of the team is unchanged from the group that just went 10-5-2 in the final quarter of this past season And in that stretch, won games against a litany of playoff teams. They beat the Golden Knights. They beat the Wild. They beat the Blues. They beat the Devils. They lost to the Stanley Cup champs, but that was in a shootout. They beat the Senators. They dominated the Stars down in Dallas, beat the Devils again. And the only one of these results that I would completely throw out would be the last win against a playoff team. That was beating the Capitals. The Capitals didn't dress anybody in that one. But the rest of these were real live hockey games against really good opponents. And this is the same team. It's not just Jimmy Shapiro here. The general consensus, including locally among people who really ought to know better, is that this team's going to be in the running for Gavin McKenna because it's going to be so awful. They're going to lose so many games. They're going to have the best lottery odds and everything else here. Based on what? Perception? Listen to me here. I'm not predicting glory here. I'm not forecasting a parade down Grant Street next summer. And I'm also, by the way, not sitting here anticipating that it's somehow inevitable that Ricard Raquel and Brian Rust and who knows who else are all going to get traded and completely alter the composition of this roster. What I know, and I'm underlining that word, is that none of that has actually occurred. And based on everything that I've heard from the inside, even they aren't expecting it to occur. They're open, they're listening, but they're hardly in there plotting and planning to have life without Raquel and or Rust, or if you even want to throw Erik Karlsson into that mix. And if you want to take this further and say, well, listen, okay, this is different because they're going to play the kids. They don't have Mike Sullivan around to stop that. They can just play the kids and lose the games. To which I will very easily counter what happened when they played the kids in the final 10 games of this past season. Well, yeah, that's right. They just kept on winning. And in some ways, they became ever so slightly a better team, I thought, through some of those games, not all of them. So feel free to put your Jimmy Shapiro emails into the junk folder where they belong. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. I'm still on that first subject. I promise I'll get to the J1Q, but I think a lot of this perception began with Marc-Andre Fleury's public comments after coming back from the World Championships that Sidney Crosby, might want to or should want to get out of Pittsburgh because it doesn't look good there this coming season, when he was in goal in St. Paul, Minnesota on the 9th of March, when this same group skated in there and owned the Wild from front to finish. I was there that day. I covered that game. It was only 3-1, and there was an empty netter in there. But the score, as is often the case, doesn't do justice to the way the Penguins played. And it was a whole lot better than the way the Wild played. Today's J1Q, which, yes, I will get to. Right now, in fact, comes from Brian Conley, who says, DK, you made an interesting case for why the Penguins might feel more comfortable than other teams drafting players like Ben Kindle with the intent of developing the skating tool. In addition to Joona Koppanen, positive examples of late include Ville Koivunen, Rutger McGroarty, who were noticeably quicker and stronger skaters in their late season call-ups than they were in training camp. And for that matter, McGroarty's early season cup of coffee. But there are cautionary tales as well. Sam Poulin and Vasily Ponomarev come to mind, though each was developed initially under different management. With the negative examples nearly matching the positives, the bet is certainly not safe, but is it worth it when you aren't drafting at the top of the class? I love the broader point that you bring up, Brian, but I do have a couple of nits to pick. One is that you lump Poulin and Ponomarev together, and I don't know that that's fair to Sam. Sam can skate. And Sam's actually always been able to skate. Sam has the size. He has the physicality. He has the occasional touch, certainly when he's around the net, at least at the AHL level. And he's not slow. He's never been slow. Whereas when I watched Ponomarev, and I paid a lot of attention to the younger guys when they came up in those last 10 games. I'm not going to lie here. There were stretches of those games where I'd watch nobody else. And I didn't see anything from Ponomarev. I saw no jump, no burst, no sustenance, no straight line, no sideways, no nothing. And I didn't just make that point after he signed a 3-year deal to go back to Russia. I made it at the time. Sam does have a problem, but it's not that one. And forgive me for this in advance, please, if it comes across as harsh. But, you know, they're hockey players, and we're people who analyze hockey players. So I don't think Sam knows where he wants to go on the rink. I continue to be of the belief that until Sam has an identity that's really forged, whether that's by management, by coaches, or by Sam himself, until he knows what kind of player he is expected to be ultimately at the NHL level, I don't know how that's going to change. It certainly wasn't going to change under Mike Sullivan, I can tell you that, because what would happen is Sam would come up, Sully would bury him on the fourth line, and then bury him completely in the third period. So he never had any opportunity to show anything. And when he did, when he was out there, it looked like what I'm describing. As I often put it, whenever we're talking about Sam, I will ask you, as in you, the listener, what kind of player he is, and you're going to give me the same symbolic blank stare that I would give you. Now, on the bright side, since we're offering positive examples here, the way you did, Brian, I also saw and heard a lot of that about McGroarty going back to training camp from last summer, and something that the kid himself told me at the time. And that was that the coaches were stressing to him that he needs to keep his feet moving. At the NHL level, there's no such thing, well, very, very few such things, as the standstill player, a guy who can just make things happen by not moving all that much. Kevin Hayes actually comes to mind, and I mean that in the positive sense too. And McGroarty told me at the time it was going to require an adjustment on his part. He had played the game a certain way, but he believed that Sullivan and his staff were correct in emphasizing this with him. He goes back to Wilkes-Barre, and he does it. Didn't take right away. That's the reason you didn't see his stats elevate right away. It did over the course of the winter, and by the time he got to Pittsburgh again, as you point out, he was moving a whole lot more. Can Sam do that too? I don't know. I want him to get a compass first, you know? I appreciate the question, Brian. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.